Hey, I don't normally do this, but I just wanted to get on and share some thoughts and some stuff that I'm learning um, concerning biases. I would think that that would be the right word. Um, I have gone through the majority of my life thinking I was one thing, treating myself according to what I thought, um, and then finding out that what I thought was true um, wasn't true at all. But my actions, my thoughts, how I treated others, how I treated myself were all based on the truth I knew. Limited truth, limited scope, limited understanding. Um, and so, that 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 limited knowledge over a lifetime caused me um, to treat myself in a way that formed a character that was not truly who I was. I hope that makes sense. Um, Not long ago, I realized I had ADHD, was diagnosed with ADHD, um, and it honestly opened my eyes to so many things over a lifetime that I had beat myself up for because others didn't look like that, act like that, think like that, view life like that. And I thought, well, okay, you know, um, I guess I'm wrong. I guess I'm wrong. And so um, when I finally started realizing through some research that this might be what was going on with my brain, um, I asked my doctor if I could be tested, and he said yes, and I was. Um, and all of these things started, you know, clicking into place. The way I saw things, the way I thought about things, um, all the stuff that was going on inside my brain because for the most part, unless I'm really comfortable around you um, or in an atmosphere, um, I don't do a whole lot of talking, you know, um, maybe more observing. A lot of that came about because, yeah, my brain was, I didn't think people wanted to see or hear what was going on in my brain because other people didn't act like that and talk like that. And so, anyway, um, I was just really, really hard on myself. And I would say that there were some people occasionally in my life that were really hard on me too because my brain didn't work like theirs or um, just a whole bunch of stuff. And so there were some tough relationships that I went through, and um, some things I did and said that I shouldn't have because what was in my head came out of my mouth without a filter. And in those situations and times in my life when I was not walking closely um, with God and His love was not flowing through me, those things that popped out of my mouth, um, even if they were true, may have been a little harsh, a little too blunt, a little too bold, not tempered with love the way they should have been. Um, and so, over the years, I really got to a point where I just thought, you know what, it's just best if I just keep my mouth shut. You know, I'll just basically sink into myself and not take up too much space, and then I won't hurt anybody. You know, I won't have to second guess the things that I'm saying and the way I'm acting, because I'll just shut it all down. Um, which, of course, we know is not healthy and not what we're supposed to do. So, you know, growing in my relationship with God um, allowed me to begin to see things through his eyes, myself through his eyes. You know, the things that I hid, you know, my creativity, um, my love for vocalizing my thoughts, you know. I still did a lot of those things. I just stuck them in my journal cuz I just needed to get them out. But I thought nobody needs to hear about this, cuz you know what? Like, I've heard from people, like, you don't think like other people, you know, your thoughts are kind of strange, you think too deep, you're too serious, you know, you live in your head, get out of your head, all of those kind of things, you know. And so I'll just put it in my journal, you know, and one day my kids will get it and they'll, you know, do whatever they want, toss them, you know, but somebody will have had the opportunity, should they read those, to know the real me that went into hiding, you know. So anyway, part of having um, found out that all of this was, you know, the thought process, the seeing things differently, um, so many other things, because there's so many different types of ADHD, right? Um, yeah, you know, it's just time to let me out, you know? And all along, God has been God has been saying, like, this is who I created you to be, you know? Um, part of the way your brain works allows you to see things in a way that nobody else does. Because nobody else has my personality, my life experiences, you know, um, my journey with God. Nobody else has that. And so the way I see things is needed in this world. Because you know what? If it wasn't, I wouldn't be here. And even, you know, the I'm not even going to say trauma, but the things that I went through because people just thought um, I didn't look like everybody else, I didn't act like everybody else, and I needed to step in line. You know, that's not who he created me to be. That's not who he created you to be either. You know, we spend a lifetime because society in this world decides what looks right and what would be right and how things work. And then they tell everybody, you need to look like this, you need to sound like this, you need to act like this. Um, and we wear masks. We just decide, hey, you know what? It's just easier just to cover up, you know? And then I don't have to deal with all that. I'll just look like everybody, act like everybody, sound like everybody, you know? And what the heck are we missing out on because we tell this young child who might be very active, or might be very sensitive or might talk a mile a minute, that, hey, you can't do that. You need to sit down, you need to be quiet, you need to act like this, you need to talk like this, even down to the things, that that little person might enjoy and find joy in. And we go, can't do that, you know? So we live in this world that is biased to their own thoughts and to what they think is right. Um, and then we try and produce all these little clones, and they all look the same. Um, and we try and correct um, the creative hand of God in people, the evidence of the creative hand of God in people, you know? So I guess the takeaway here is that um, I had to apologize to myself, you know, for for trying to recreate her in the image of others, for telling her that the the things that she was learning with God were not important enough to share with other people. Um, that the things um, that I found joy in, um, if they weren't beneficial to others, they weren't beneficial, and you just need to stop. You know. So you know, I don't think that um, I don't think that my ADHD is a bad thing. I don't. Um, it. I love the insight that it provides. I love how, you know, my brain can look at situations um, and see things that other people don't. I love how my brain looks at nature and sees the lessons of God, sees the creative hand of God, um, sees the details, you know? And honestly, if I couldn't have multitasked um, the way uh, I guess ADHD has allowed me to do, I'd have never been who I was in the restaurant business. I would have never um, been able to do some of the jobs that I've had, you know? And really, I think it, they they were probably a little bit harder for me because I had to stay on top of things. Um, but I brought something to those jobs that somebody with a brain unlike mine wouldn't have brought to that job, you know. And so um, I really, I've heard people go, "Oh, well, um, you don't have to live with that. We can pray and God can heal your brain and your system." And I thought, finally, at almost 61 years old, I like who I am. I like how my brain pictures things, how words come together in my head and end up on paper. Um, there's so much about myself that I just really, really like. that wouldn't be that way if I didn't have ADHD, you know? And so um, I even love being able to be around, certain people in certain situations and being able to information dump. I'm sure to some people it feels like they just, you know, uh, stood under a massive waterfall, and it's like, too much. But I love that part of my brain. I really, really do. It makes me feel alive and just vibrant and so I know that there are some situations I can't talk like that, act in certain ways, and that's cool. I understand that, you know? But if you really get to know me, and allow me to be me, I'm a pretty cool person. I really am. Um, I love deeply. I'm a deeply sensitive person. Um, I feel what's in the atmosphere. And so, if we're together and you're hurting, I feel that and I'm aware of that. And God can allow me can use that sensitivity to allow me to bring his heart into a situation that benefits you, you know? And so we need people, we need to allow people to be who they are. I don't want to use the word without judgment because that's getting a little into an area that I would rather stay out of. Because I do, just like I said, there's some areas I'm in where I know that I need to curtail, you know, the the how I'm speaking, what I'm speaking, how much I'm speaking, all of that, you know. Um, but to allow people to be their real selves, and you know what? If you're a believer and you want to allow God to work in your life, and you are pretending to be somebody else, refusing to admit who you really are, he can't work with that. He can't work with that. So even with God, like he expects us to be our authentic self, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know? And he goes, I can deal with this. Now invite me into this. Invite me into this, you know? And in all honesty, that, you know, when I am weak, then God is allowed to step into areas to bring strength where I may not function um, like a person without ADHD, you know? So, really, like, it's a win win, right? Um, anyway, I know I'm rambling. Welcome to my brain. Uh, but thanks for listening. If you watch, if I even post this, I don't even know if I'll post this. Um, but I just felt like I yeah, be gentle with yourself. You know, be gentle. Your brain doesn't have to work like other people's brains. Um, you don't have to act like other people. You know, um, and I just want to let you know that if you've been told you're too sensitive, if you've been told you talk too much, if somebody's looked at you and go and said, "Oh my goodness, is your brain never quiet?" Which I've heard. Um, or if somebody's done this, as you were trying to navigate your thoughts and process your thoughts out loud, um, I understand. And if you have been, I'm gonna get a little emotional here, and that's okay. If you have heard those things and you have closed yourself down, um, because it hurt to be you, I'm sorry. I really am. Um, and you didn't deserve that, you know? You didn't. Um, so I just I just want you to know that you are loved and that God thinks you are awesome. Just the way you are. Just the way you are. Whether your brain, you know, works like others or not, you know? And there are some things as a person, you know, with ADHD that we have to be aware of, particularly as women, okay? Now, people with ADHD, particularly women, you know, um, are known um, to have issues with anxiety, okay? So, there are more women who, because our brains are going all the time and we're trying to keep it all sorted, right? And a lot of us keep it to ourselves, and that's not good for our bodies, right? So, you know, a lot of women with ADHD are put on anxiety meds, right? Because we may not be hyperactive on the outside, but it is in here, okay? The other thing that we can get hit with is um, depression, heaviness, you know? And so you can go into a doctor and they'll go, oh, you have depression. Let's put you on a med. Um, because we condense ourselves, because we feel all that's a lot of us feel a lot of what's in the atmosphere and it can become very heavy. Um, so, there are things that we need help with, you know. Um, I did finally get um, a med to try, and I was freaking amazed um, at the change in my head. Um, the the kind of cloud, heavy cloud, I wouldn't even label it as depression, um, eased. Um, the my thoughts running in a million directions at one time um, slowed down and clarified. You know, I don't take it all the time. You know, but there was also and I know I'm wandering all over the place. This is called information dump. Um, there were there were projects and things that started building up. Things that I needed to do, should do, all those kind of things. And after a while, because I could not, I just felt like I didn't have any energy for it, you know. Um, And so on days when I know I need to get a good bit done, I take some medicine. You know, it helps me get those things done without feeling um, overwhelmed um, to where I sometimes just don't feel like I can do anything, you know, because everything's flying at me at one time. So, any, anyway, I think that's probably it. Um, I just kind of wanted to get that out, um, and let you know if you're experiencing any of that stuff. Um, you're not alone. You're not alone. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. Um, if you share some of the same things, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, because we all have them, right? I've just got lots of them. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.